Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Entrepreneurship Development Cell of St. Xavier's College, Kolkata, I would like to extend my gratitude to each one of you for being present here today. It is my honor and privilege to present to you our esteemed panelists who would be sharing their perspectives and insights on leadership and success in the hybrid world. We have with us here Mr. Pulkit Bhandari, who serves as the Group Corporate Finance Head at RPG Group. He has over a decade of experience in his field of expertise and has engaged with various corporates across the sector, assisting them in the domain of financial strategy and mergers and acquisitions. Present with us here today is Mr. Ankit Prasad, whose success in his first tech startup served as an inspiration to all. With a keen interest in tech and entrepreneurship, he went on to create Bobble AI, the world's first conversation media platform. We also have with us here Mr. Sandipan Mitra. Having been involved in India's online food space for more than a decade, Mr. Mitra possesses unparalleled expertise in his craft and currently serves as the CEO of HungerBox, which he co-founded in 2016. We are immensely grateful to Mr. Meghdut Roy Chaudhary for accepting our invitation to moderate the discussion. Sir is the Executive Director and Chief Innovation Officer at Techno India Group. Sir loves interacting with students and has inspired thousands of students across the globe. Thank you for tuning in with EDC. Hope you have a great time. Handing over to Meghdut sir now.
Thanks so much, Aditya. Very, very warm welcome to all of you present here. You are at Entreprise for this year, and I feel like this is one of those events that from St. Xavier's Edinburgh, maybe because the students, all of Aditya's classmates and seniors, probably they like me a little bit too much. They keep calling me back to be a part of this session in some form or the other, and it makes me happy no matter what's happening in real life on the other side. Somehow coming back and speaking to students, I think has been something that that keeps me going in some way, sort of provides the manna for my life. And today we have with you, dear audience, a phenomenal panel of absolute go-getters, people who are going to be inspiring you for the next 30 to 45 minutes that we spend together. And I'm personally looking forward to learning from them a lot about their entrepreneurial journeys, about their journeys as very, very successful leaders of their individual worlds and as thought leaders in the industries and sectors that they represent. So without any further ado, I'm going to start right into the topic. Welcome our dear panelists today. I hope you've had your morning cup of coffee. I'm still at it, my second one of the day, and looking forward to interacting with you all. Let me start off with Ankit. Ankit, can we see Ankit's camera on screen?
I think I'm visible. Yeah, hi, Meghdut.
Hey,
While
Ankit.
you're having a second cup of coffee, but I'm not a coffee person, so I'm having my green tea, second cup of green tea since morning.
Cheers on our individual tastes of coffee or tea, whatever makes us happy, whatever keeps us going. As Ankit is fondly referred to as the bubble guy. Very interestingly, so Ankit comes from this little town called Chaibasa in Jharkhand. And we actually have a college in Jharkhand, in the Techno India College, that's a PPP with the Jharkhand state in Chaibasa. And I have always been so blown away by the hospitality of our students in Chaibasa every time I've been back to that campus. And I think there's something with small towns in general. I think the beauty of India as a country comes from all of the innovation happening in the smaller towns. And this is where I see, with the most amount of inspiration myself, that so much incredible work is happening. There's so much human potential in those places. Ankit, a little bit about your past growing up in Chaibasa, a little bit about your education as well. Would love to know about that and how it was like for you to make that big jump, a small town boy, as they say, but then going on to becoming the leader in the world of conversational AI. A little bit about yourself, Ankit. Over to you.
Sure, Meghdut. Yes, you are right. I was born and brought up in Chaibasa until I was in class 6, when I moved to Jamshedpur, and my father got a job in NIT Jamshedpur, and that was the beginning of exposure for me. And I believe exposure is everything, which designs your thought process, which helps you, think beyond your existing situation. When I moved to Jamshedpur, even that is a smaller town relatively compared to the metros, but getting into a good school, which was DAB in NIT, inside the NIT campus, helped me, know things about IIT, for example, which I wasn't aware while I was in Saibasa. So when we got to learn about IIT, I was really working hard to get into one, but unfortunately, I could not in the first attempt. And that, it honestly it didn't matter to me personally because I had a very different aspiration of creating a business right from the beginning. Bill Gates used to be my, ideal person, whom I used to look up to. At such a young age, he created an operating system and an entire ecosystem in the computers domain, and it was an inspiration for me because I was personally so much excited about computers and mathematics. Fortunately, in the second attempt, I got a chance to study my favorite subject, which is mathematics and computer science at IIT Delhi. Even bigger exposure came along with it. The daily ecosystem and the very fact that the year I entered into IIT, it was we used to see in front of us the stories of Sachin and Benny Bansal creating Flipkart, or Deepinder Goyal creating Zomato, or Rohit Bansal creating Snapdeal, right? So all of these stories were right in front of our eyes, and that motivated me enough to create a similar level of impact uh, in a very different domain, in the consumer technology domain. And that's what I chose as the path for myself going forward. Right? So coming from a small town does have its own set of advantages. When you live with limited resources, and when you learn to live with limited resources, it makes you prudent, and it makes you कहते हैं जुगाड़ू, uh, right? I don't know what's the English word for it. Resourceful, right? So coming from a
Frugally innovative.
yeah, so I think coming from small town does have its own set of advantage, which gives you an edge over those who are used to living in more resourceful areas, right? So I think that helped me a lot in keeping myself and my company prudent and frugal while growing, right? Exponentially since then. So yeah, that's my story in short.
And I mean, since then, I mean, of course, after your first startup, having created Bobble, and then spreading it out across the world, it's been growing massively, and then getting all of these accolades. I think I want to know a little bit about it from an outsider's perspective. I mean, there's been this huge uproar recently with things like people winning Forbes 30 under 30, or 40 under 40, or these accolades that you get. How important do you think they are to what you call your success? And if somebody, I'm sure a lot of these young kids who are watching the session right now, they're probably very admirative of these titles, so as to speak. But as someone who's won a bunch of them, what difference has it made to your life?
I think most of the work was done before the title was given, right? And that's why the title is given, because you have created some level of impact. So I think title does help in catalyzing that growth process. You get recognized and get visibility amongst the right eyeballs. So I think that definitely helps. But for me, it was the first title that helped a lot, and beyond that, I think most of the titles were, uh, it's like following the known, right? So when Forbes recognized me in 2018, it was an organic and purely surprising for me as well. I wasn't expecting it at all. I couldn't, believe myself worthy of such a title at the Asia level. But then when Forbes recognized me, it gave us as an organization immense visibility and eyeballs that helped us grow. Uh, Beyond that, all other titles just followed, right? And now there's a point when we really don't care about such things, because those are vanity metrics. It does gives you some level of motivation, but at the end of the day, you have to get down to day-to-day execution, making sure that your organization is growing in user base and revenues. You're innovating, you're building the right culture, you're hiring the right talent, and so on. So those are the things that matters the most than the titles, I believe.
So many solid lessons in just that one bit. Very important lesson for all of you guys watching in today. I think new favorite word learned, vanity metrics. The fact that it's important. Yes, it gives visibility, but at the end of the day, if you're not constantly innovating in your workplace, if you're not creating a working culture that inspires the ones who work with you, none of those titles are probably going to keep you in the game for too long, because at the end of the day, it's all about building value in the workplace. We'll come back to you again very soon, Ankit. Thanks so much for helping us delve deep into your psyche and the way that you perceive the world around you. We're going to move to Pulkit here. And Pulkit is somebody who has been in the world of investment banking for a very long time. I think more than half of my age, he's been in investment banking. I'm not being ageist here. I'm just stating out straight up facts. And I'm very curious about, I mean, I don't know a lot about the space in general. I was always, when I went to business school, I think I was always very wary of the IB folks and the M&A guys, because first they had the longest schedules. All of them used to come back home much later than usual. I used to live with an investment banker in a shared apartment, and he was always the one working the hardest. I always saw that. But in general, I don't think I ever really understood the financial markets or in general a lot. So I have a lot of questions for you. The first one, obviously, and I'm not going to talk about like your work just yet. Before that, there's been this huge buzz about the metaverse in general, and one particular aspect of Web3, which is something we're talking about a lot right now, is DeFi, decentralized finance, and how it has the potential of completely revolutionizing the way we look at finance globally. So from a completely noob's perspective, I'm just very curious what somebody in the sector will have to say. And I'm going to come back again to you, Pulkit, and ask you, of course, your story and stuff, but maybe you can start off a little bit with your story, give the audience a bit of context, and then I'm personally very curious about learning about your thoughts on DeFi. And we'll come back to a bit about corporate startup engagement for RPG, for the group that you represent. But we'll come back to that. Over to you, Pulkit, some thoughts from your side.
Sure. No, thank you, Meghdul. And I think thank you for making me realize that I'm old when you say half my you had like twice the age in terms of my experience. But yeah, no, I think very cognizant of that we are all getting old. Now, I think just a little bit about myself. So I grew up in Jaipur, which is capital of Rajasthan, and my entire childhood was in Jaipur. I did my schooling there, did my college there. I came to Bombay for my internship, and that was when I saw the finance world in action. But yeah, I would say that basically the entire upbringing was more of a small town setup, and that at least the aspirational part, which I even carry now, came from there, right? So you're part of an ecosystem, and you want to be part of a larger ecosystem, and how do you get there is something which I always used to kind of wonder and think about. In terms of education, I did my CA. I did take an attempt to basically clear my CA, which is okay, because I was focusing on the learning aspect when I was doing my internship, and that made me kind of take an attempt, which I think just talks about one of my initial failures. And also, just to give a perspective on my career side, I did take up science, and I realized that IIT is not my cup of tea. So basically, I quit in a span of 1 month, and I realized that finance is what I like, and I would rather pursue myself in this particular area. Bombay was that distant dream, and I think when you are part of finance, it comes naturally, and you want to be part of that, and that is how we do that happen. I landed up in Bombay. I like the city. I like the working culture, and I just stayed here, and it's been 17 years now. In terms of investment banking, which you spoke about, There, I think I would say that very early on, I was set in terms of what I want to do. What I loved was basically working with multiple corporates, multiple cultures, multiple entrepreneurs, right? And that is what excited me about investment banking, because that was a segue into understanding various industries and various people, and how they think, how they create value, and also how some of them destruct value, right? So it's not always one-way street. And when you're part of that investment banking, I would say, ecosystem, you see it up close. You see some phenomenal value being created, and you see some absolutely phenomenal value kind of getting destructed. And when I look at my client list today, so many have done well, and so many of them have vanished as well. So I think that is what excited me about investment banking, and I did that for 10, 11 years. And a natural transition was to basically kind of think about being on the other side, where you see the larger part of value creation, and that's why I joined RPG Group. Again, here I was very clear that I want to be at the group level, which gives me a vantage point where I can look at multiple businesses, right? When you look at multiple businesses, you get very interesting perspectives, right? Because what I love about strategy and what I have learned in that multiple business ecosystem is that there's so many things which you can replicate, right? It's not that you need to run an IT business just the way traditional IT businesses have been run for last so many decades. So there are so many elements of all disciplines, if I may say, of various other businesses which you can kind of superimpose to create value, right? So that's a bit about basically me. That's a bit about what I do. In terms of your specific question, Meghdud, in terms of how the tech will kind of come into finance, I think it's bound to happen. So the finance is going to get highly digitized, and that's why it's very important that the skills that we are kind of building are not skills which will get kind of replaced sooner or later, right? Whether the Web3 metaverse will basically kind of invade the current ecosystem in next 3 years or 5 years or 10 years is questionable, but it will happen, right? That entire digitization happened in the last, it was always there for last decade, but in last, I would say five years, it has got fast forwarded like 50x, right? It's like you're watching a movie in a fast forward mode, and you see how things are changing, right? So with the ERP systems kind of controlling the entire finance now, so whatever is basically replaceable will get replaced. So it's very important that the skills that we build are very specific to certain niches, and those niches will survive. I think when it comes to, say, elements of M&A, right? When it comes to elements of financing, when it comes to elements of investor engagement. So there are personal elements which I think will be very difficult to replace. And people will want to experience that in the normal physical world. But then there'll be certain, whether it comes to analysis, whether it comes to basically work which traditionally an analyst or an associate would do, will get replaced in the new world. And I think we should all be prepared for that.
I have so many follow-up questions, but I don't know how much time we have on this. I'm just going to stick to one follow-up question after that, which is I think a lot of young people who have been looking at the Web3 space quite closely, or have been investing in we're talking about NFTs right now. It seems to be the biggest buzzword in the market, and there was this obviously huge uproar on Twitter as well after the budget was announced this year with 30% capital gains tax on the money that you make from your cryptos. How did the world of finance react to that? Is it something that you are positive about? Do you think that that the taxation slabs that have been placed on cryptos, is it something that that should have happened, or could have been done better? How do you see the market itself evolving? Because obviously everything's new right now, so there's everything, every little segment of it is like a domino effect, and a lot of people start jumping onto the bandwagon. But you, as somebody who's been in the space for that long, obviously level-headed, has been on the top of his game for this long, how do you see this world evolving? I'm sure the young ones on this call would be very interested to know.
So, okay, I'll be very candid. So I was not a big believer on the crypto side, I would say till a couple of years back, but as a matter of disclosure, I basically opened my own account, I would say a few months back, right? So I think it's not anymore a choice. It will become a need, and we'll have to basically think about it as a specific asset classes. And I'll tell you why. See, the world of finance has become super complex now, right? If you go back 5 years, you will see basically very specific asset classes which were there, right? So there'll be an equity, there'll be a startup VC ecosystem, then there's real estate, gold, and then you have some crypto which is being spoken about and things like that, right? And every asset class had a discipline, which the participants of that asset class would generally follow, right? But now what has happened is that all these asset classes have got mingled up and everyone is dependent on everyone, right? So that discipline has somewhere got lost or got intermingled, and that is why basically everything has become relevant now, right? So if the crypto has to go down, right, it will have a domino effect, as you said, on some other asset classes as well. And if those asset classes were to go down, right, it will have a very widespread impact on a larger economy. And that is something which neither the governments can basically kind of accept, nor investors can accept, nor basically people like us will want to happen, right? So now that we are all kind of interdependent, what will happen is that these asset classes, I would say, whether it's NFT or a Bitcoin kind of an element or a crypto kind of an element, will somewhat survive. So earlier the thought or the question was that will they survive or will they completely kind of get vanished, right? Now I think the general acceptance is that they'll survive. Now, in terms of whether they'll thrive, whether will it be a hockey stick or will it be like a hill approach, I think that needs to be seen. In my assessment, personal assessment is that it will be more like a gradual hill approach rather than a hockey stick approach, but they'll survive. They will continue to be super volatile because the people who trade into them and the age group which trades into them is super volatile as well. So with the dynamics of the consumer, dynamics of the participants, it will continue to be volatile, so be prepared for that. In terms of I think they are getting recognized. So is the tax efficient? Is the disclosure efficient? I don't think so. I think there are too many things which still need to be resolved and solved. Even the platforms, when I look at the current platforms, I think there's so much gray in terms of how the execution happens. But I think just the recognition part should give people some confidence that now at least that vanishing element has somewhat reduced. So I think it's good to be part of this ecosystem, but I would personally not bet the house. I'll say that it's more of a diversification that I look at it rather than like going full hog. On NFT, I'll reserve my comments. I have read about it so much, but I'm still struggling, okay, to basically figure out where the value is, where the actual element is. So I'll reserve my comments there, and I'll say that on crypto I have accepted, but NFT is still a huge gray area for me. Yeah.
Super. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's what an Economic Times 40 under 40's very honest and candid assessment of the world of finance right now looks like. Thanks so much for sharing your views with us, Pulkit. I've been personally very enlightened by it, and we'll connect offline. There's a bunch of other things I want to talk to you about on this as well. And when it comes to NFTs, I think you're not the only one. I mean, the number of scams I think we've seen recently, even on OpenSea, anybody who's following the space closely, it's what happens, right? It's a bit like the gold rush in California when it happened back in the day. Suddenly, everybody wanted to be a a gold miner. And the moment you see value and the moment you see disproportionate value, I think that's where human beings get very excited. It's about the quick returns, the quick gains. How can we utilize the space without even understanding what the intrinsic asset classes, as you were discussing before, has a role to play in the overall the funding of it. Like how is it based on the economics of it? How is it based on the finance of it? Without understanding that, I think a lot of people jump into the space. So here's a very, very good a couple of lessons that take it easy. Do not jump into anything without understanding the underlying value of what it could bring. The regulations are still on its way. It's not the end with this year's budget. It's going to get modified, remodified. The whole space is going to keep evolving. So do not invest anything that you would be scared of losing. I think that's kind of the most critical assessment I could understand from what Pulkit said before. It's good to get into a space, but ghar daw pe mat laga dena, bas yahi cheez hai. Then your parents probably are not going to be very happy about it. So from the world of finance, we moved to the world of food, and Sandipan, who's been a flag bearer in the food tech scene, the founder of HungerBox. We're going to come to him soon. And we Bengalis, I mean, we are doing this session from Xavier's Calcutta, and we are. I'm guessing Shondipanda is also Bengali, coming from his name. Seems like it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So from one Bengali to another, like I'm glad things are cooking literally in the food tech space in India. We recently saw the first D2C Indian unicorn as well, and this has become such a hot space, even with tech coming into the world of food. I think we Bengalis are the happiest ones, because now we have access to better food faster in our own homes, and people like Sandipan are leading the way when it comes to that. Sandipan, over to you, and would love to know a little bit more about yourself, your work. What were the initial reasons why you got into HungerBox, and the story behind the creation of HungerBox in the first place, other than the fact that you're Bengali and you love your food, which I'm guessing is a given. Over to you, and I'll come up with some follow-up questions based on that. Over to you.
Sure. Hi everyone, and let me start by saying that I'm jealous of everyone listening here, right? Because you all are going to enter the workspace at its best time ever, right? India is going to experience economic resurgence like never before over the next 10-15 years. So there cannot be a better time to do your own business, join the workforce, be part of any economic activity in the country. Right? So, quick background: I am also from Jamshedpur, right? So, 0 to 18 years of my life was spent in Jamshedpur, and the city itself is the best example of the power of entrepreneurship in the country. Right, it's considered the oasis in the desert. Right, you walk out of Jamshedpur, you don't have water, electricity, roads, but inside Jamshedpur, it's an example to the rest of not just India but to the world as to what's the power of entrepreneurship. Right, we are all blessed, Ankit and I, to have come from the city, seen the power of entrepreneurship. So that's something that grew on me. And then when I left the city to come to Bangalore, which is the startup hub of the country today and the world tomorrow, that dream just continued. We started early. While doing my MBA, we started India's first online food ordering company by the name of Just Eat. Right, so we ran it for almost a decade. And that time we didn't have smartphones, so it was all on the web. Right, only in 2014-15 did apps come in and replace the web part of it, and that's the inflection point of the industry. Right, so then eventually in 2015, the company was acquired by Food Panda, and we felt that the story was incomplete, and we had to do something more in the food tech space. And as you rightly put it, Meghdad, out of all industries in our country, food is the only industry where you will find Bengali entrepreneurs, right? And you don't need to guess why, right? Maybe because of the love for food that all of us have. So we started our next company, HungerBox, in 2016, and this time the focus was on institutional food, right? We looked at food consumption. You consume food at home, where you have companies like Swiggy's and Zomato's of the world which are catering to that segment. But there is a lot of food consumed in the institutions, right? In your workplaces, in your colleges, in your factories, in a mall or a multiplex, in a hospital. What about that? What's happening there? So when we looked at that industry, we found there are a lot of these beautiful food entrepreneurs across the country, right? But they are very localized and a very fragmented industry, and there are few MNCs operating in our space, right? The Sodexos, the Compasses, and Eliors of the world, right? But there is no Indian company that addresses this beautiful space, right? So we said that we want to build a company which acts as a platform, helping revolutionize institutional food consumption. So with that aim, we started in 2016, and phenomenal growth. 8 out of the 11 largest employers use the HungerBox platform. That's the kind of penetration we were able to get in the first 4-5 years of the company. And yes, that's in a nutshell our story. Obviously, pretty badly COVID hit. That pushed us to start other sectors like healthcare, manufacturing, etc., which are not COVID impacted, right? That gave us that push towards these industries. And now, as we are emerging out of the COVID era, we are positioned to grow very rapidly over the years to come.
First follow-up question to you, Sandipan. You used to work as a waiter, cashier at a restaurant on Brigade Road. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but I think this is one part. If it doesn't make you uncomfortable talking about that experience, as Shah Rukh Khan very famously said in one of his movies, I think that koi kam chota nahi hota. That is, I think, from that point on, of course, coming from a smaller town, you talked about Jamshedpur being sort of a hub for hungry entrepreneurs, again, very literally and figuratively here, and going on to build not just Eat and HungerBox and all of that. How did that entire journey happen for you? Were there lessons that you learned from waiting tables and doing billing for consumers? Did it help you understand the market better? And now that you look back at that experience, would you have had it any other way?
Sure. No, so I'll tell you interesting journey, right? So yes, I worked in a food joint called Wimpy's for about 6-8 months while doing my graduation. That taught me a lot about how the industry works, who works in it, how how a restaurant looks from inside, right? My next job was that of a call center, right? Graveyard shift, doing tech support for American clients all throughout the night, right? I spent 6-8 months, doing that in a call center, right? The third experience was in Wipro of a software developer, right? And fourth experience was in Yahoo, doing online marketing, right? And if you add the 4 experiences together, right, that gives you online food ordering, right? So it's not that it happened by design, right? It's just that there were various instances in life which led to me doing what I did. But then the food experience, the call center experience, the technology experience, the being part of a company like Yahoo, which builds great online brands, all these experiences made me who I am today, right? So when I run my company, everybody knows that this guy can handle, almost all, verticals of the business, right? I think the most nicest part of my experience has been the fact that we have had such diversity in that experience.
So again, super important lesson for you guys listening in today is that do not hesitate to be a jack of all trades, as Sandipan mentioned. I think this is something that in modern folklore has been, not modern, but like in folklore in general, has been sort of demonized. I think the whole jack of all trades, master of none, as if you have to be a master at something in order to succeed. But as you can very clearly see that with people right at the top of the industry, they've had such diversified, varied experiences, which are not, there's not a lot of mutual inclusion, even sector-wise. But I think all of those experiences give you the necessary skill sets. It helps build those necessary skill sets, which further enhance the way that you recognize patterns, for example, and eventually build companies which are very, very successful, because then you can understand the problems of society a lot better. Super interesting insights, Sandipan. Thanks so much for sharing those with us. There's a follow-up question I have for Ankit on this, but it's based a little bit on your experience here again, Sandipan, which is, I think Food Panda is a rocket internet company, right? If I'm not mistaken. I think it's one of those. There's a very interesting thing about Rocket Internet, guys. If you're listening in, and if you do not know what they do, it was basically created by a bunch of ex-BCG folks, all consultants back in the day, and their business model relied on copying innovation. Like, these guys are basically like the biggest copycats of anything successful that happens and emulating it in other places in the world. And on one side you can say that, okay, copying is probably bad, as you have been taught in school, because nahi to principal ka bhi gatta patta, uske baad, your parents would also not be very happy when they get a call from the principal or your teachers that your son or daughter was caught copying in school. But in the world at large, considering how large a world we live in, I think Rocket Internet hit it right on spot with the way that they copied innovation successfully from one geography to another, and then sort of customized a little bit. So because of this whole Rocket Internet story, I just got reminded, Sandipan, thanks for that. But my question is for Ankit on this. Ankit, you having been in the tech space for a while now, and obviously I'm sure in some way or the other you've probably sat in on some business pitches where young kids are straight up giving you copies of Uber and Ola as their business plans, and in a world where so much information is accessible to us, and we're constantly being bombarded by information on the internet, and when there is a huge tech boom and a tech bubble happening where everybody suddenly wants to be an entrepreneur, thank you Shark Tank India, what do you think of the world of copying and plagiarism in the world of startups, and do you think it makes any difference whatsoever or not?
I think the fear of getting copied is overrated. While you talked about Rocket Internet copycat model, yes, it is a copycat model, but their success is not dependent on copying a successful innovation on some other geography. Their success is dependent on great execution that their team does. And I'm sure Sandipan is privy to that. The kind of speed and agility and strategic mindset that the team carries is unmatchable, right? They they can build a copycat of Uber in a third geography in a couple of months' time, right? It's not easy to set up that level of team and get into execution that fast, right? I think execution is the key here. When the business models are the same for two companies, the one who is executing it faster, who is executing it in better, and of course in the right direction, is bound to win, right? Now, having said that, yes, I do hear a lot from budding entrepreneurs about their business plans, about their ideas, and they are never hesitant of sharing their ideas with us. And I believe I was never hesitant on sharing my idea with people around, right? And I think everyone should be sharing their ideas, because ideas are worthless. Idea has zero value. You put that idea on paper and nobody is going to give you any money for that. Right? The real worth comes from the executing that idea and bringing it into reality, like demonstrating the power of that idea as the worth. Right? And for that matter, we believe as a company, as an individual, I cannot do 100 things. I have to focus on certain things which we are good at. Right? And therefore, when there is an interesting idea that comes or we get exposed to, we prefer if we really like that idea, really like that entrepreneur, we prefer to invest on them. We prefer to partner with them rather than copying them and increasing our own workloads. There is enough to do. We are already, and I think everybody loves their own business, their own vision, and there is no point deviating from the vision every time you hear a great idea. Right? If you really like it, you can always invest. You can support that entrepreneur in creating a larger success, and you can take a pie of it, right? And be a part of that journey. Yeah, so that's my thought on copying. But having said that, there are there are instances where our own ideas get copied. For example, we are in a space which is heavily dominated by the tech giants like Google and Microsoft and Tencent and Baidu in China. So every time we come up with a feature and that becomes a hit, it gets copied, and we don't mind it, right? Because we believe in order to make that behavior permanent in the larger masses, if the feature gets adopted by other companies as well, it just helps us in inching closer to our larger vision, right? And replicating that impact to larger masses. So we don't mind it at all, and I think it's healthy to have such copying or rather inspired execution by some other company, right?
Inspired is the word. We're going to stray away from the word copied from here on. And following up, thanks very much for sharing that, Ankit. Following up on that, I'll go back to Pulkit and take a little leaf from Ankit's spiel about hive entrepreneurship and how you can only grow bigger together if you're partnering with smaller entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs, and then taking a bit of the pie instead of copying the idea. I actually wrote my master's thesis on corporate startup engagement and how in resource-constrained economies like India, it's very important for us to be frugal, for us to be jugadus in general, but also to innovate in an open innovation model. And I built a framework around it. Now, you representing one of the big, like a $4 billion enterprise, RPG, you guys are, like as corporate gets, right? You're like right at the top of that. In what ways do you and your organization partner with startups, or merge or acquire, or work with startups in general, in order to innovate and to get ahead of the curve? Because we know how fast the world is evolving around us, and there's probably no corporate that I see around me right now which does not indulge in a little bit of corporate startup engagement in some form or the other. So a little bit from the horse's mouth on that. How do you guys work on that model?
Yeah, I'll talk about how we do it, but I'll also give you a perspective in terms of why is it happening, right? So I think one of the buzzwords or key requirement in the current ecosystem is basically lateral thinking, right? And diversity, right? And diversity is not just basically the way we kind of perceive diversity in terms of, we also need diversity in terms of mind spaces and mindsets, right? We can't all be thinking alike, right? We need diversity on gender, we need diversity on age, we need diversity on other skills as well. Either when we're talking about boardroom or we're talking about management, and sometimes, no matter what you do, and there'll be some skills, some lateral thinking, which will stay as a gap. And that's why it's very, very critical to go outside and basically partner with a startup or a ecosystem, which is kind of focusing very specifically on that particular problem statement, right? So I think that lateral thinking is very important. And today, when the world is moving so fast, it's easy to become irrelevant. and lose that entire relevance that you have created for decades and decades in a matter of few years, right? So, and the best way, as I completely agree with Ankit, I think you can't do everything. All large corporates are structured in a particular way, and I think the best way to kind of create relevance, stay relevant, is that basically you partner with startups, right? So I think from our perspective, Meghdut, what we do is we of course take small stakes. So wherever we see value, wherever we see we can add value, right? And that value doesn't need to be only financial. It can be management value. It can be experience value. It can be cultural value. It can be so many other elements, right? Along with financial value, right? So wherever we see that we can do that, we try and basically assess those situations, become an equity partner in some form or shape. So that's one. Second is of course co-create certain solutions, right? So we work with various institutions. We work with smaller set of entrepreneurs to problem solve together, where we are pulling in resources from both sides, and kind of coming up with a solution which we believe that we can kind of take it to a particular level or a scale at some point in time, right? A whole lot of them are failures, some of them are successes, but I think what we all have signed up as management, as larger conglomerates, is that basically we have to learn to like failures as well, and accept them, right? So I think that's the general trend which is there, and I think this trend is going to stay. Also, the mindset of control, the mindset of basically owning majority is also moving away, right? So now large conglomerates, large corporates are okay with minority stakes, okay with a younger set of people running the show, and just kind of building on that. So I think all that has happened, and we are doing pretty much everything, right? So whether it's startup investment, whether it's co-creation, whether it's investing for a particular problem, or maybe kind of giving our other resources. So I think, yeah, we are pretty much there everywhere, and doing all this bit, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So again, another very important lesson, guys who are listening in, that even if you're building your startups right now, when you're starting off the journeys, and a lot of you would end up pitching to some investor or the other, you don't always necessarily just have to do it in order to raise funds, because there's also other ways of working. And whatever your vision is, that you want to make your company into a particular size and see it work with 500 people, 1,000 people, and solve some real world problems. You don't have to always look at it from an equity investment perspective itself. There are ways of corporate startup engagement wherein you can co-create value with bigger enterprises, and this is something that's pretty common across a lot of industries. So definitely take a look at that when you are looking to grow your companies as well. I think we are drawing to a close of today's session. I was allotted about 15 minutes. We're drawing towards the end of it. Before we finish, I would like to quickly go on a round of final words from all of the participants, from all of the panelists today. Famous last words, let's say, starting with Sandipan. Sandipan, if you can, and I'll give you a little peg here, right? So if you were an entrepreneur today, and not having started like 20 years ago, if you were a student, if you were where these kids are today, you did say that they are very fortunate that they're starting off at this time. But any message to your younger self that you would have given if you were a startup entrepreneur today? Same question for all three of the participants. You have 30 seconds each. This is me making you guys do your elevator pitch when you're already at the top of your industry. The tables have turned, but we're going to do some things for our young students here as well. So a message to your younger selves, if you were starting off on your startup journeys or entrepreneurial journeys or your professional journeys right now today. This is the first time that you're getting introduced to that world. Go. Starting with Sandipan, then we'll go to Ankit, then we'll go to Pulkit.
Sure. So first and foremost, I would tell myself I'm lucky me that I'm doing this at the best time. right? There is access to capital, the economy is growing, India's time has come. So multiple reasons, right? So yes, it's a great time. But my advice would be that, it's a lifestyle choice, right? Nobody put a gun on your head and told that, become an entrepreneur. You choose to be one, right? And that choice comes with a price to pay, right? The journey is not simple. It's not for everyone. It takes its pound of flesh. We just underwent that, when 6 years into building our company, we feel we arrived, right? And someone asked me that how can your company get hit, and I didn't know, right? And then once in 100-year pandemic came and kind of hit us, and now we are regrowing our company, right? So for doing things like that, I'm sure all companies go through those phases and those challenging times, right? If it is not a lifestyle choice, if it is not something that you do because you love doing it, right? I love the fact of feeding people, right? And it's the noblest job of all, and I'll continue doing that forever, right? So it doesn't matter to me whether the company is valued at such and such, whether someone chose to give me some award and some recognition, etc. I just do it because I love doing that, right? So the reasons for you to become an entrepreneur should be well founded, and you should be very clear about it. You should be clear that it's a lifestyle choice that you have made, and you are ready to pay your pound of flesh for doing that. And most important advice, and which I find missing, is everyone wants to play a T20 game today, right? Nobody wants to play a test match, right? But most times I have seen, there are 13 lakh listed corporates in our country, right? Only 100 are unicorns. Not that the other 12 like 99,000 companies are not doing well, or not doing, right? You have to be patient, right? If you are here to change lifestyles, if you're here to rewrite and redo your industry, which has been there since decades, you have to be patient. You have to be there for the long haul, and then you will find results kicking in, right? I met Vijay, right? And when Vijay Shekhar Sharma, and I asked him that, what's your advice, right? He's one of our investors. So he also had the same thing that, guys, although I'm in a technology fintech company, which is new age and all that, but it has been 22 years in the making, right? So it takes time. You have to be patient and do it for the right fundamental reasons, right? The journey is just amazing. The journey itself is so fulfilling that the end line doesn't matter much, right? So yes, and you all are the brightest minds in the country. It doesn't require me to say this, right? The choices and the brightest minds in the country. If you all don't do entrepreneurship, then kaun karega, right? So yeah, that would be my advice.
Super. Thanks so much, Sandipan. Over to you, Ankit. Your famous last.
Okay, sure. I'll, if I would have to advise my younger self, which is, the audience here, I would say find your calling. That's number one. Because, when I see people making a choice for, when they're entering into university, that they're getting into so and so department because somebody told them a job jaldi milti hai is department mein, right? Those are the wrong calls you're making. Or for that matter, a budding entrepreneur choosing to get into a venture because market lucrative hai. I think these are the wrong calls that people make. Find your own calling. What is your inner heart is telling you, which is the passion that you carry for that particular. If you're passionate about that idea, if you're passionate about that university department, then you should go for it because your passion will lead to success, not that market will lead to your success, or not that job lucrative opportunities in that department will lead to your success. I think it's you who will lead to success. So that's one. Find your calling. Find a great mentor, a relevant mentor for yourself. because there's a lot to learn. There's a lot that you can save your time by learning from others' mistakes, others' failure. Find a mentor who has done that before that you want to do. It's something similar, who have done something similar earlier. It will help you save your time and help you fall lesser number of times in your journey. Right? You will definitely fall, but it will be lesser. The third point is, um, while you can continue to learn from others' experiences and other journeys, but I think there's a merit in creating your own unique journey, right? The kind of uh, uh, vision or the kind of thought process that you're bringing on table, it deserves a unique journey, and everybody had a unique journey. Don't copy someone else's journey or follow their path. You can learn from them, but try creating your own unique journey. So find your calling, find your mentor, find your or create your unique journey. Those are the three things I end with.
Super. Over to you, Pulkit. Final
Yep.
line.
I think so. I'm not a entrepreneur like Sandipan and Ankit. I've of course kind of been in a job for the longest time frame. So I think if I have to advise myself going back 15, 17 years, I think first will be, uh, and I'll be very candid. I think a little bit of risk is something which I could have added. So I played all right. I played very well. I've had my shares of ups, and I've had my shares of down as well. But a little bit of risk is what I could have added or should have added in hindsight. I think in terms of from here on, what my advice would be to all of you, I think is I'll use a word called mindful. Okay, and I'll say that be mindful of the motivation always, right? And that's something which I think what Ankit also alluded to, Sandipan also alluded to. But sometimes when we see superstars like Sandipan and Ankit, we forget the element of mindfulness which we also need to have, right? So I think be mindful of your own personal motivation. Okay, I think that's very, very important. So just always think about it and have it in the back of your mind. Second, I think money cannot be a motivation. Okay, I think if the idea is to create wealth, okay, for oneself, if that's the motivation, I think at least my personal belief is that's wrong. Money is a byproduct. Wealth is a byproduct of what you do. It cannot be the key motive, right? Or the key go to or key goal. The goal has to be something which is much more larger and much more exciting than just basically flying in a private jet, right? So I think be mindful of the motivation. Don't make money because I think there's so much out there, so much which is happening. So don't make that as a goal. And third is basically learn to fail. I think, and it's easy to say, but when we have to go through the same thing, and I'm sure Sandipan and Ankit would agree that there'll be days and months when basically as entrepreneurs you'll be hammered. You'll basically there'll be no light at the end of the tunnel. But be mindful that failure is something which is bound to happen, and consolidate yourself when you basically face that. And I think to that extent, having a good team around you, having good people, good friends, good mentors is very important, right? So while of course there's some collateral damage which happens as we kind of take this very aggressive journeys, but be mindful that don't lose those personal elements in that journey, right? So having that good friend, uh, having that good family member, a little bit of that touch is very important, because when you are down, you need all that to come through to kind of push you to that, push you to fight back. So just be mindful on those three things. So that's from my side, Meghdud. I try to differentiate to extent I can from Sandipan and Ankit. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think for everyone who's watching this now, and I hope this was recorded and is available for people to watch later on as well. But I think if I was a young student at this time, and if I did not watch this particular 1 hour session, I think I would have missed out a lot, because this was phenomenal, guys. Like, I'm so grateful that that we had this chat. It was almost like a masterclass in how, like, entrepreneurship 101, how to get into that space. And not just that, it's also about life 101. In a bit, it's not just about becoming an entrepreneur, it's about being more mindful. We spoke about the importance of family, the importance of mentors. We covered topics from food to finance, to the future of the way that these industries are moving, to tech, to corporate startup engagement, to I can't even, I mean, I wish I was taking notes. I hope you guys took some notes, because you definitely need that going forward. And there's a summary of this available. I'm really missing my friend Christopher Malpitan. Is this guy who he draws out, he does cartoons of like sessions like this whenever we used to do back in the day, and he would draw them out and create sort of like a really nice schematic which could be shared across all people. So I'm gonna have to call him back and see where he is for sessions like this, because there's so much interesting insights and information which is shared that that needs to be encapsulated in very easy to refer ways. Otherwise, it's a big loss, I feel. So that's all from this session. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us despite your busy schedules in your day-to-day lives. It's also a weekday in the morning, and I'm sure it was not easy to take out time from that. But I think, when it comes to inspiring the next generations, I think this is all our responsibilities at the end of the day. People who've achieved even a little bit, how can we give back to the young students so we can create a country that we feel that we truly deserve, and a country which is led tomorrow by all of these young and enterprising young students who will go on to lead the pack in their own sectors. It's been a pleasure moderating this session. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm Meghdut Roy Chaudhary, signing off now, and over to you, Siddhant, for the closing words. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
After such an inspiring session, it's my absolute honor and my pleasant duty to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of the Entrepreneurship Development Cell of St. Xavier's College, Kolkata. With immense appreciation and gratitude, I thank Mr. Pulkit Bhandari, Mr. Ankit Prasad, and Mr. Sandipan Mitra for being present with us today. Adorning the event, your valuable and practical insights of today's topic, leadership and success in the hybrid world, has enlightened us and has given us valuable food for thought. A special thanks to Mr. Meghdut Roy Chaudhary for moderating and conducting this discussion today. We gained significantly from your intellectual inputs. It was a pleasure to have you all and able to learn from your distinctive life experiences. A special mention to our respected Principal Reverend Dr. Dominic Savio and Vice Principal Reverend Father Joseph Kulandai and Reverend Father Peter Arakim for encouraging us to pursue greatness and live up to the great Xaverian reputation. I would further like to thank our faculty advisor, Dr. Arup Kumar Mitra, for his leading supervision and inspiration at every point of time in college. Last but not the least, I would like to extend a deep sense of appreciation for all the support, timely implementation, and guidance provided by the members of Entrepreneurship Development Cell. We owe the success of the session to you. Once again, thank you for tuning in with EDC. Have a pleasant day.